Hello students. So today we are going to look at the ICTA 2020 O-levels from the year 2020. We are going to look at the MCQ paper. All right. Now the MCQ paper is about, I would say, 1.5 hours long. So you have to prepare to answer 40 questions within those 1.5 hours. So let's begin with the first question. In this, you have to answer all 40 questions. You have, as I said, 1.5 hours. So let's see the first question. Which of the following contains only input devices? Now, since you are familiar with input-output devices, the fastest way to look at how we can identify the input devices is to first look at what these output and input devices are. So now, for example, I would look at the multimedia projector as an output device. Okay. Printer is definitely an output device. So this is completely out. Again, we have printer, that is an output device. So I don't want that. And light pen projector, here we go, another one. This is multimedia projector, that is also out because it has a monitor. So the only thing remaining is mouse, keyboard, light pen, and joystick. Okay, so because of that, I would say that this is the right answer. Okay, mouse, keyboard are input devices. Light pen is also an input device. Joystick is definitely an input device. Even the touchscreen is also an input device, right? But printers and projectors and monitors are output devices, okay, because they send something out. So let's look at the next question. The three main functions of an information system is, as you know, it's input, process, and output. Okay, it has nothing to do with code or developing, or definitely not copy paste and select copy paste. So that's absolutely wrong. So the correct answer is input, process, output. Okay. Next one, which of the following represents the units of measurement of data in a computer system in the ascending order of their size? So ascending means it starts from small and grows to the largest. So let's see. Bit, byte, kilobyte, and terabyte. That looks like a logical answer. Let's look at the next one. Megabyte, kilobyte. No, that's definitely wrong because it starts from megabyte and goes something smaller. Byte to bit, that's also wrong because it starts from 8 and then it goes to 1. Terabyte, gigabyte, no, starts from, again, 2 to the power. For the terabytes, that's 2 to the, yeah. So it goes from 10 to the power of 12. Okay, so that's completely out. So it goes in the opposite direction. So the right thing here is bit, byte, kilobyte, and terabyte. Right, let's look at the next question. Which of the following shows the storage device of a desktop computer in descending order of storage capacity? So register, cache, memory, hard disk. Okay, hard disk would have the largest capacity, so I would focus on answers that have the hard disk as the first item in this comma separated list. So I would look at maybe this one, the second one, hard disk, RAM, and register. That sounds like the most suitable answer in this. So that's going to be the right answer. Next one, which of the following are true about a secondary memory of a computer system. So data is not erased even if the computer is switched off. So that means we are looking at a secondary memory, which means it's a hard disk. So primary memory is RAM. So there's primary and secondary memory. So primary is simply normal RAM, which is volatile, and secondary memory is like hard disk and flash memory, which is non-volatile. It does not get erased. So therefore data is not erased even if a computer is switched off. That is correct. Solid state devices can be used as secondary memory. That's correct, because solid state is like a flash drive, right? Or even a solid state disk, like a disk for a, it's not a normal disk. It's basically comes looking like a tiny piece of memory, but it contains maybe about 512 GB of storage capacity. Next one, secondary memory is part of the CPU memory. Not really. Secondary memory is hard disk. How can that hard disk be part of CPU memory? So that is wrong. So the right answer is A and B. So this is the right answer. Okay. Now let's look at the next one. That's number 6. Okay. I'll remove that. Hold on. Right. Okay. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the generation of computers? Okay, so let's see. You should know the first generation of computers are vacuum tubes. Second generation will be transistors. Third generation are chips. And fourth generation are the microprocessors. Right, so let's see. Transistors were introduced in the first generation of computers. That is wrong. First generation of computers had vacuum tubes, not transistors. Right. High-level programming languages were used in the second and third generation computers. Correct. Like Fortran, way back in the day. These are in 1980s. Okay. Fortran was used. Then operating systems with graphical user interfaces has been in the fourth generation. That is correct, because GUI requires microprocessors. Okay, it will not run on transistors. So the right one should be transistors, right? B and C. So high-level programming languages was used in the second and third generation, correct? And operating systems were in the fourth generation. So it's B and C. Next question. Kamala Siri access the official web portal of government of Sri Lanka. So that is this particular website, to get details about the government web directory. Which of the following services was obtained by Kamala Siri from the Sri Lankan government web portal? So the government to citizen, right? It is this one. So government to citizen is that, right? This one is government to business, and there's government to government. So this right one is government to citizen, because Kamala Siri is a citizen. Which of the following contains only examples of the operating system? Okay, so let's see. Android, yes. Ubuntu and Windows, those are operating systems. Let's look at this one. Ubuntu is operating system. Windows 10, yes. Windows Explorer is not an operating system, so that's out. Here's another Windows Explorer, that's out. Here's another one, so that's out. So the right answer is Android, Ubuntu, and Windows 10. They might even give you something like, Raspberry Pi operating system, right? So that's also the right good operating system for Raspberry Pis. Next question. Which of the following statements are correct? A graphical user interface, GUI, provides the facility to use a mouse to execute commands. That's correct. WIMP stands for Windows icons, menus, and pointers. Correct. A command line interface is more user-friendly low. A command line interface is not user friendly. Okay. Compared to a GUI, no, the GUI is far more friendly. A command line, you have to type the command, which means you need to memorize all your commands in order to type it correctly. Okay, so the A and B are the correct answers. Assume that you are the leader of a team assigned. Oops, wait, let me erase that. Yeah, and we need to scroll up. Right, okay, here we go. So we need to assume that you are a leader of a team assigned to develop a new information system for your school. Which of the following techniques can be used to identify the requirements for this system? So you are going to develop a software in some kind of maybe an information or a library system, maybe student information system, right? So in that, what kind of requirements would you follow? Okay, so here we go. Observation, interview, and final prototyping. So observation, definitely you need observation. Okay. Yeah, definitely you have to have interviews, and you will definitely need to create a prototype. So the right answer is ABC. Okay. Now let's move to the next one. Which of the following is the correct order of activities in the software development life cycle? So in the software development life cycle, there are a couple of stages. So first is the design stage, or rather the requirement identification. After requirement identification, then you have the design. After design, you will have coding. Now, in here, there is no such thing as a coding, but coding is actually the implementation stage, right? They just use another fancy word like implementation, which is implementing actually the code or the design into code. After which you will have the testing phase, then you have the deployment. Deployment is you deploy it to the customer and then you maintain it. So if we look at the order, it starts with requirement gathering. So requirement identification is in B. So we have three answers with B. Then the next one would be the design. So we have BC, right? B and C. I better put that down so then we don't get confused. So one is B, design, and then you would have to implement it, right? Three, after implementing, we have to test it. So that's 3, 4, and then you deploy it to the customer, and finally you would maintain it. So let's see where it stands. So it's BCA. BCA. BC, yeah, that's the only one with the BCA. So that is the correct answer. Right. So that's it. Next is, in a given spreadsheet segment, cells A and B, that means cells A1 and B1, display values of 40 and 50 respectively. After entering the formula $1 and $1 to the cells C1, okay, it displays the value of 90 in the C1. If the formula in cell C1 is copied to the cell C2, okay, so if this is copied to $1 plus $1, what will the value be, right? Well, there is a thing now with this. It's a dollar. So because it is a dollar, right? It's not A1 and B1, right? So it's like this. So if you had A1 plus B1, that formula is different to A dollar 1 plus B dollar 1. Okay, there is a slight difference between that. It may look like it might look the same, but when it comes to Excel, $1 you can actually write these numbers here. You can put the numbers A and B, and you can basically drag this point here. So if you look at, can you see this tiny dot here, the square dot? You can click on that and then drag it down. If it was A1 plus B1, and that will replicate the formula to A2 B2, A3 C3, sorry, A3 B3, A4 B4. So it will basically like an accounting sheet. It will basically calculate everything in the A and the B in its respective rows. Okay, it will do that in its respective rows. That way you can just, instead of copy paste, you can just click on that tiny square that is here, this tiny square, and drag it down, and it will apply the entire formula from the top to the very bottom in its right locations, right? That will basically, it works for Excel accounting sheets. Okay, now A$1 and B$1, when you put the dollar, it doesn't work from top to bottom. It works from left to right. Okay, so when you put this from left to right, let me open up an Excel sheet and then show you why this is happening. Okay, let's open up the Excel sheet. Here it is. Okay, so let me erase those lines. Right, I'll put here 30, 40 equal to $1 plus $1. That will return 70. Okay, which is expected. That's the expected output. Now, when you put this copy and you paste it down here, it still returns 70, even though I put here 10 and 20 here, right? However, when I copy this from here and place it in this column D1, you know what it does? It shifts from left to right. So this this $1, B$1 becomes B$1, C$1. It shifts. So it shifts from like this two squares, it shifts to these two squares. And guess what? If I paste it over here, now it shifts from these two squares to these two cells. So it keeps shifting like that. So I'm going to put another one here. Look at that. It just keeps on shifting, right? But over here it does not shift. See? So it shifts like a window from left to right, but not from top to bottom. However, if I put it like this, if I take this and I delete the dollar, right? And okay, I need to put here 2. Okay, 2 B2. Right. It works correctly. Now it's going from top to bottom. Now this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, like, drag this from here. Saw that. It's giving me the right values. So if I put here 5 and 6, it gives me 11. If I come here and put 30 and 33, it'll give me 63, right? So that's the difference between A1 and B1 versus $1 versus $1. So that dollar makes a difference. Okay. Let's move that away. So the right answer would be, if the formula in cell C1 is copied to cell C2, okay, cell C2 and D1. Okay, so cell C2, we know because it's a $1, it's going to remain the same. So it's going to remain at 90 here. Okay. And since it's going to remain at 90, what happens when we copy and paste it to D1? It's going to shift that window, right? So AB is going to now shift to BC here. So B plus C is how much? 50 plus 90 is 140. So the right answer is this one. Okay. Let me put this. So that's the right answer. Okay. Right. So let me move to the next question. We'll erase that. Okay. Next question. Consider the following spreadsheet segment with 4 components labeled PQRS. So we need to know what's P. Without even looking at the answers, you should now be familiar with Excel. We should know that this is an active cell. These are columns, these are rows, and this is a function. So let's see. PQ, right? P, Q, R, and S. So active cells. So it's starting with active cells. Next, it goes into active, wait, the PQ. Okay, rows. Rows and PQ are columns. So here we go, columns. That's the one. So the right answer is number 2. Active cell, you have rows and columns, and obviously last one is the function. Okay, next question is, which of the following statements, let me erase this. Okay, which of the following statements are correct for the cell range given as C2? Okay, let me move that a bit. Okay. Which of the following statements are correct for a cell range given as C2 and E5? So C2 to E5, C2 to E5. Okay, in a spreadsheet. So total number of rows in this range is 3. Okay, so C2 to E5, so that includes C2, 3, 4, 5. So that's actually 4 rows. So it says here 3, but that's not correct. Geometric shape of this cell range is rectangular. The geometric shape would be rectangular. Okay. So that's 4 rows down. And C2, 3, 4, 5. So there is, so it's rectangular. So that's correct. Okay, so looking at this, I would say I would draw it like this from C2 to E5. Okay. The geometric shape of that is rectangular. So that is correct. This is wrong. Total number of rows in this range is not 3, it's 4. Total number of cells in this range is 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, correct. 12. So it is B and C only. Okay, good. Now these ones you will have to spend a bit of time working on them because these are computational ones. Right, next one. Which of the following statements are correct regarding different types of projectors? Right, so we spent too much time on the above. Let's try to see if we can answer this very quickly, okay? Which of the following statements are correct regarding different types of projectors? Okay, transparent sheets. Wow, that's a really old one. That's from the 1990s or 80s, 1980s, 1970s. These are really old. Transparent sheets used in overhead projectors always have to be pre-prepared. That is correct. So it needs to be pre-prepared or pre-printed on a thick polythene sheet, because those projectors basically have this. It's not electronic. Well, it just has a light. It doesn't have circuitry, because it has a magnifying glass and it has a very bright light on the top, and there is this giant magnifying glass. You keep your sheet on it and then it just projects light onto it and then bounces it off a couple of mirrors inside, and then it bounces it onto a wall. So that's the ancient way. I have seen a few of them which is sold for about 5 to 6,000 rupees. Even in Peta and Fort, I've seen them. Well, not recently, maybe last year. Next one, images can be included in the slides using a slide projector, which is correct. Whatever that can be, printed onto a transparent slide. Yeah. Electronic presentations made using a computer can be displayed through multimedia. So electronic presentation basically me PowerPoint and Impress, LibreOffice Impress. Yeah, it can be made through a multimedia projector. So it's all correct. So that's ABC. Someone has a collection of properly formatted documents, which means he has properly formatted with images, headings, prepared using Microsoft Word and LibreOffice Writer. He needs to save these documents without any formatting in order to proofread, which would be the most suitable file extension type for this purpose. This is where you need to know your file extensions, okay? So PowerPoint is PPT, or then Open Office documents, that's LibreOffice, would be ODT. Text is open, basically text, plain text. Document X is also Microsoft Word. LibreOffice also has export option. This is PDF is Adobe's portable format, portable document format, okay? So obviously he wants something that is simple plain text with no formatting. It's TXT here. Which of the following statements? So you need to basically know the extension of that. So it's always important to go through the extensions. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the presentation software? Okay, so this is looking for practicals, the practicality of doing a presentation, right? So animation effects can be applied only to a single object on a given slide. No, we can use animations on multiple objects. You can group multiple objects. You can even have multiple objects which are not grouped, and you can still apply. You can select all of them together and apply an animation. So that's wrong. So we're looking for a correct answer, okay? Next one, audio recordings can be included in a presentation slide, correct? It is recommended to use less than 10 lines of text in a single slide, correct? it is a recommendation. Okay, why? Because it's a good practice for us to implement presentations using the least amount of text. So you can use images. There again, just only a few images. You should not have it gaudy. It should be very presentable. And you should have large letters. You can't have tiny letters or huge paragraphs where people have to focus on reading your presentations, right? So in a corporate world, there are certain ethical things that you need to follow. So best practices. So having a few lines of text on a very impactful slide is a good practice. That is why it says it is recommended. Okay, so since it's recommended, it's a good practice to have under 10 lines of text. So the right answer is B and C. So that's the right answer. Let me erase these other things. Okay. Right. Then let's go to the next one. We have more to erase. Okay. Right. Okay. Which of the following are considered as advantages of electronic databases? So, electronic databases simply means any kind of a database like Access, Oracle, Postgres, MySQL. So that's an electronic database, right? Smaller physical space is required to store data. Correct. Why? Because you don't need to have files. You can basically store all your physical files. If you take government offices, they have huge cupboards, right? Huge drawers that store like thousands and thousands of files, physical files. So you don't need to have all that space used up. You can just have it on your computer, right? Or in the cloud, or on some central database. And in the central database, you can basically have all your documents, right? All your files, your images, everything in folders, right? So that also can be considered as a database. So electronic databases can be that. If you have even a folder containing all images of all the files of a government organization, let's say your EPF and ETF salary slips, they have photographed it or rather scanned it, and they are like putting it in respective files with the respective naming conventions. And those naming conventions, you can have it in a table, in a database table, right, for that respective person. So when that respective person requires something, or when the EPF office or the ETF or the government office requires something, they can quickly go and check that individual's ID, and according to that ID, the folder structures and the folder names and the file names and individual naming conventions, it's all tracked. They can immediately start referencing those, and they can bring all of that up on their screen. So that is one of the primary advantages. It's space efficiency. Okay, next one, easy to obtain copies. Obviously it's very easy, just get the name and then all the data is there, just print it. More efficient in retrieving information. So yes, that's the whole purpose of that. It's more efficient, right? So if you want to see more of these, you can always contact me, and we can always go through the past papers and see how we can optimize our responses and quickly optimize them. Okay, have a good day. Bye bye.